Ethan Carter had always been a man of contradictions. At 38, he was one of the wealthiest individuals in the country, a self-made billionaire whose tech empire spanned continents. Yet, despite his immense success, Ethan lived a life marked by solitude. His sprawling penthouse apartment in Manhattan overlooked Central Park, but its opulent interiors felt hollow. The walls were adorned with modern art that cost more than most people made in a lifetime, yet none of it brought him joy. He rarely entertained guests, avoided social gatherings like the plague, and spent most evenings alone, nursing a glass of single malt scotch while staring out at the city lights. To the outside world, Ethan was an enigma, a reclusive genius who preferred numbers and algorithms over human connection. But beneath his polished exterior lay a man burdened by loneliness. His parents had passed away when he was young, leaving him an orphan with nothing but a fierce determination to succeed. That drive had propelled him to unimaginable heights, but it had also left little room for relationships or emotional vulnerability. Over time, Ethan had convinced himself that he didn't need anyone, that love and companionship were luxuries he couldn't afford. Lately, however, there was something gnawing at him. It wasn't just the weight of running a global corporation or the endless demands on his time. It was the growing realization that his life lacked meaning beyond profit margins and shareholder reports. This feeling came to a head when he received an invitation to the annual Carter Foundation Charity Gala, a high-profile event hosted by his own charitable organization. Normally, Ethan would have skipped such affairs altogether, sending a representative in his stead. But this year was different. The gala honored his late parents, whose philanthropic legacy he had vowed to uphold. Attendance wasn't optional, it was expected. As if attending weren't enough, there was another complication. Ethan needed a date. In the past, he might have shown up alone, indifferent to whispers about his personal life. But recent media scrutiny had painted him as cold and aloof, damaging both his public image and the foundation's reputation. His PR team insisted that appearing with a partner would soften his persona and demonstrate his humanity. Reluctantly, Ethan agreed, but finding someone willing to play the role of his girlfriend proved easier said than done. His usual circle of acquaintances consisted of business associates, employees, and opportunists eager to exploit his wealth. None of them inspired trust or even mild interest. Desperate for a solution, Ethan began wandering the streets during his rare moments of downtime, hoping inspiration would strike. And then, one rainy afternoon, it did. Mia Thompson sat huddled under a makeshift shelter of cardboard and plastic tarps, her arms wrapped tightly around herself for warmth. At 26, she bore little resemblance to the confident college graduate she once was. Life had dealt her a series of cruel blows. Losing her job after the company downsized, falling behind on rent, and eventually being evicted from her tiny apartment. What little savings she'd managed to scrape together disappeared quickly, leaving her with no choice but to sleep wherever she could find refuge. Despite her circumstances, Mia refused to let despair consume her. She clung to the belief that better days lay ahead, even when hope seemed foolish. Her mornings began with a visit to the local soup kitchen, where she volunteered whenever possible, sharing meals and stories with others struggling to survive. During the day, she wandered the city, searching for odd jobs or scraps of discarded food. At night, she curled up in alleys or subway stations, praying for safety and strength. It was on one of these aimless walks that fate intervened. As Mia approached a busy intersection, she noticed an elderly man struggling to cross the street. Traffic moved swiftly, oblivious to his plight. Without hesitation, Mia rushed forward, taking his arm and guiding him safely to the other side. The man thanked her profusely, pressing a crumpled dollar bill into her hand before shuffling away. Though the gesture was small, it filled Mia with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in months. Unbeknownst to her, someone else had witnessed the scene. Standing across the street, Ethan watched as Mia returned to her spot on the sidewalk, her face glowing with quiet satisfaction. There was something extraordinary about her, something that transcended her ragged appearance and dire situation. She radiated kindness and resilience, qualities Ethan admired but rarely encountered in his insulated world. Curiosity got the better of him. Crossing the street, He approached her cautiously, unsure of what to say. "Excuse me," he began, his deep voice tinged with uncertainty. "I saw what you did back there. That was impressive." Mia looked up, startled. Her eyes widened as she took in the impeccably dressed stranger standing before her. "Oh, thank you," she stammered, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face. I couldn't stand by and do nothing." Ethan nodded, studying her intently. "What's your name?" "Mia," she replied, still wary. "And you are?" "Ethan." He hesitated, debating whether to continue. Finally, he plunged ahead. "Listen, I know this might sound strange, but I need your help with something. It's important, and I think you're the only person who can do it." Mia frowned, suspicion creeping into her expression. "Help with what?" Ethan explained his predicament, the charity gala, the need for a date, and his desperate search for someone genuine. To his surprise, Mia laughed softly. "You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? Seriously? I understand it's unconventional," Ethan admitted, "but I'm offering fair compensation. Enough to get you back on your feet, if that's what you want." For a moment, Mia considered refusing. The idea of pretending to be someone else's significant other felt absurd and potentially dangerous. But then she thought about the opportunities it might provide. Shelter, stability, a chance to rebuild her life. Slowly, she nodded. "All right, I'll do it. But don't expect me to act like some spoiled trophy wife. You're getting me as is." A flicker of amusement crossed Ethan's face. "Deal." Thus began an arrangement neither of them could have anticipated. For Ethan, it was a calculated move born of necessity. For Mia, it was a leap of faith, a gamble that might lead to salvation or disaster. Little did they know, their lives were about to change in ways neither could imagine. The days leading up to the gala were a whirlwind of transformation for Mia. Ethan wasted no time in setting his plan into motion, whisking her away from the streets and immersing her in a world she had only ever glimpsed through glossy magazine covers and movie screens. Their first stop was an upscale boutique on Fifth Avenue, where Ethan handed her over to a team of stylists who descended upon her like artists presented with a blank canvas. Mia felt out of place amidst the racks of designer dresses and shelves lined with shoes that cost more than her monthly rent back when she still had one. She fidgeted nervously as a stylist draped fabric across her shoulders, muttering about silhouettes and color palettes. Meanwhile, Ethan stood nearby, watching silently. He seemed oddly detached, as though this was all just another business transaction. Yet there was something in his gaze, a flicker of curiosity or perhaps admiration, that made Mia wonder if he saw more than just a project. By the end of their shopping spree, Mia found herself staring at her reflection in disbelief. Clad in a sleek navy blue dress tailored to perfection, paired with understated gold jewelry and heels that clicked confidently against the floor, she barely recognized herself. Her once frizzy hair now cascaded in soft waves around her face, framing features accentuated by subtle makeup. The woman in the mirror looked poised, elegant, and utterly unattainable. "You clean up pretty well," Ethan remarked, breaking the silence. His tone was casual, but his eyes betrayed a hint of approval, or maybe something deeper. "Thanks," Mia replied, forcing a smile. "Though I'm not sure how long I'll last without tripping over these heels." Ethan chuckled, surprising himself. It wasn't often he laughed genuinely, especially in situations like this. "Don't worry, we'll practice walking and talking. You're going to need to blend in at the gala." Over the next few days, Ethan took it upon himself to prepare Mia for the event. They spent hours rehearsing everything from proper table manners to conversational etiquette. Ethan drilled her on topics likely to come up during dinner, politics, philanthropy, art, and coached her on how to respond diplomatically. At times, the lessons bordered on absurdity, such as when Ethan demonstrated the correct way to hold a champagne flute or explained which fork to use for dessert. For Mia, the experience was equal parts overwhelming and amusing. She couldn't help but laugh when Ethan sternly reminded her not to chew with her mouth open or slouch in her chair. "I feel like I'm auditioning for some kind of elite finishing school," she joked one afternoon as they practiced small talk over tea. "And you're acing it," Ethan shot back, though his lips twitched with suppressed amusement. Despite his initial aloofness, he found himself enjoying Mia's wit and charm. There was something refreshing about her honesty, her refusal to conform entirely to the polished facade he expected. When she accidentally knocked over a teacup during their session, she didn't flinch or apologize profusely. Instead, she grinned sheepishly and said, "Guess I'm not cut out for high society after all." But beneath her light-hearted demeanor, Mia wrestled with conflicting emotions. On one hand, she appreciated the opportunity Ethan had given her, a chance to escape the harsh realities of homelessness and rebuild her life. On the other hand, she couldn't shake the feeling of being complicit in deception. Every lesson, every outfit, every rehearsed line felt like another layer of pretense masking who she truly was. Was she becoming someone else entirely? Or was she simply borrowing a version of herself that didn't belong? Her doubts came to a head one evening as they reviewed potential questions Mia might face at the gala. Ethan had just finished explaining how to deflect inquiries about her background when Mia interrupted him. "What happens if someone figures out I'm lying?" she asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. "What if they realize I don't belong there?" Ethan paused, considering her words. For all his wealth and influence, he understood what it meant to feel like an outsider. "No one will figure it out," he assured her. "Not if we stick to the script. Besides," he hesitated before adding softly, "you belong wherever you choose to be." Mia stared at him, momentarily speechless. Was that genuine encouragement or just another part of the act? She wanted to believe him, but trust didn't come easily anymore. Still, his words lingered in her mind, planting seeds of hope she hadn't dared to nurture. As the gala drew closer, Ethan began noticing changes, not just in Mia, but in himself. Teaching her about his world forced him to confront aspects of his own behavior he'd long taken for granted. He realized how rigidly he adhered to societal expectations, how much effort he put into maintaining appearances rather than fostering real connections. Watching Mia navigate this unfamiliar terrain with grace and humor gave him a newfound perspective on authenticity. One evening, as they walked through Central Park after a particularly grueling rehearsal, Ethan broke the silence. "Why do you think kindness matters so much to you?" he asked suddenly, surprising even himself. Mia glanced at him, caught off guard by the question. "I guess because it's the one thing I can control," she admitted after a moment. "When everything else falls apart, the job, the apartment, whatever, you can still choose to be kind. It's grounding, you know?" Ethan nodded slowly, absorbing her words. Grounding. That was exactly what he lacked in his life, and perhaps what drew him to Mia in the first place. She embodied qualities he admired yet struggled to emulate: humility, resilience, and an unwavering belief in humanity's goodness. Their conversation shifted naturally to lighter topics, punctuated by laughter and shared observations about the park's autumn foliage. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a sense of ease in someone else's company. It wasn't perfect, they were still playing roles, still bound by the terms of their agreement. But moments like these hinted at the possibility of something more. By the night of the gala, Mia was both terrified and exhilarated. As Ethan helped her into the sleek black car waiting outside his penthouse, she took a deep breath and reminded herself why she'd agreed to this arrangement. This wasn't just about survival. It was about proving to herself that she could rise above her circumstances, that she deserved better than the life fate had dealt her. And as Ethan slid into the seat beside her, his expression unreadable but his presence steadying, Mia allowed herself a fleeting thought. What if this charade turned into something real? Little did either of them know, the answers to that question would unfold sooner, and more dramatically, than either anticipated. The grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria buzzed with energy as guests mingled beneath glittering chandeliers. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter echoed off gilded walls, and waitstaff glided effortlessly between clusters of impeccably dressed elites. It was the kind of scene Ethan had avoided for years, yet tonight he stood at its center, his arm linked with Mia's, as they descended the sweeping staircase. Mia felt every pair of eyes on her as they made their entrance. Her heart raced, but outwardly she maintained a calm composure, buoyed by Ethan's steady presence beside her. She reminded herself to breathe, to smile, to act like someone who belonged in this world of opulence. And somehow it worked. The murmurs that rippled through the crowd weren't whispers of judgment or disbelief. They were exclamations of admiration. "Who is she?" one guest whispered to another, eyeing Mia's elegant navy gown and radiant poise. "I heard she's some European socialite," came the speculative reply. Ethan always did have impeccable taste. Ethan caught snippets of the gossip and couldn't suppress a smirk. For all their wealth and status, these people were remarkably easy to fool. But more than that, he felt a strange sense of pride. Watching Mia navigate the room with quiet confidence, greeting strangers with genuine warmth, he realized just how far she'd come in such a short time. She wasn't merely pretending. She was shining. Their first test came during cocktail hour, when Ethan introduced Mia to several prominent figures from his inner circle. There was Charles Whitmore, a silver-haired venture capitalist known for his sharp tongue, and Victoria Langston, a fashion designer whose brand adorned celebrities worldwide. Both scrutinized Mia closely, peppering her with questions about her background, interests, and connection to Ethan. To her credit, Mia handled herself admirably. When Charles asked where she grew up, she deflected with a charming anecdote about traveling extensively as a child. When Victoria inquired about her favorite designers, Mia praised Alexander McQueen and Dior while tactfully steering the conversation toward art, an area Ethan had prepped her on extensively. Ethan watched intently, marveling at her ability to adapt. Each response was polished yet authentic, leaving no room for suspicion. By the time dinner was announced, rumors of their whirlwind romance had already begun circulating among the attendees. The evening took a dramatic turn during the main course. As plates of seared duck and truffle risotto were served, Ethan rose to deliver a speech honoring his late parents. The room fell silent as he stepped onto the stage, his tall frame commanding attention. He began by recounting his parents' dedication to philanthropy and their vision for creating opportunities for underserved communities. "But tonight," he continued, his voice softening, "I want to thank someone else who has inspired me recently, someone who reminds me of the importance of kindness, resilience, and seeing the humanity in others." His gaze shifted to Mia, seated at the head table, her expression one of surprise. "Mia Thompson, you've shown me what true strength looks like, not in wealth or power, but in character. Thank you for reminding me why we do this work." The applause that followed was thunderous, but Mia barely heard it over the rush of emotions flooding her chest. Tears welled in her eyes as she met Ethan's gaze, recognizing the sincerity behind his words. This wasn't part of the script. It was raw, unfiltered honesty. And for the first time since agreeing to this charade, Mia felt truly seen. Of course, not everyone was convinced. Across the room, journalist Lydia Harper scribbled furiously in her notebook, her instincts telling her there was more to this story. Lydia specialized in exposing scandals among the elite, and something about Ethan's glowing tribute struck her as suspicious. During dessert, she approached Mia under the guise of conducting an interview for a feature article. "So, Mia," Lydia began sweetly, "how did you and Ethan meet? Your story sounds absolutely fascinating." Mia froze for a split second before recovering. "We met through mutual friends," she replied smoothly, sticking to the rehearsed narrative. "It's been quite the whirlwind." Lydia pressed further. "And what do you do professionally? I imagine balancing your career with Ethan's busy schedule must be challenging." This was tricky territory. Mia hesitated, searching for a plausible answer. Before she could respond, however, Ethan appeared at her side, his demeanor cool but firm. "I'm sorry, Lydia," he interjected, placing a protective hand on Mia's shoulder. "We're trying to enjoy our evening without discussing business matters." Lydia smiled thinly, clearly annoyed but unwilling to push further in front of witnesses. "Of course, my apologies." As she walked away, Mia exhaled in relief. "That was close," she murmured. "You handled it perfectly," Ethan assured her, though his jaw tightened with irritation. "Don't worry, I'll deal with her later." Just as tensions began to ease, a new complication arose. Ethan's ex-girlfriend, Isabella Moretti, swept into the ballroom like a storm cloud. Tall, striking, and dripping in diamonds, Isabella was everything Mia feared she could never be. Polished, confident, and effortlessly commanding. She strode straight toward their table, her heels clicking ominously against the marble floor. Well, Isabella drawled, her accent thick with disdain. Ethan, darling, imagine my surprise when I heard you brought a date to your precious gala. Care to introduce us? Ethan stiffened but kept his tone civil. Isabella, this is Mia. Mia, Isabella. Charmed, Isabella said, extending a manicured hand that Mia shook politely. Her piercing gaze lingered on Mia, assessing every detail. So, tell me, Mia, what exactly qualifies you to be on Ethan's arm tonight? It's simple, really, Mia replied evenly, surprising even herself with her boldness. I make him happy. Isabella raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. How quaint. Well, let's hope happiness lasts longer than most of Ethan's relationships. Before Ethan could intervene, Mia leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but steely. I think it will, because unlike some people, I don't see Ethan as a trophy or a stepping stone. To me, he's a person, flaws and all. For a moment, Isabella looked taken aback. Then she forced a brittle smile. Touché, darling. Enjoy your evening. With that, she turned on her heel and disappeared into the crowd. As soon as she was gone, Ethan turned to Mia, his expression unreadable. Where did that come from? He asked, his tone tinged with both amusement and admiration. Mia shrugged, still trembling slightly from the confrontation. I guess I got tired of pretending. Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Neither of them spoke for a long moment, but the shift between them was palpable. What had started as a transactional arrangement now felt dangerously close to something real, and neither was sure how to navigate it. By the end of the night, as the final strains of music faded and guests began filing out, Ethan found himself reluctant to let go of Mia's hand. They stood together on the balcony overlooking the city skyline, the cool breeze brushing against their faces. That went better than I expected, Mia admitted, breaking the silence. Better than I deserved, Ethan corrected softly. He turned to face her, his blue eyes searching hers. You were incredible tonight, Mia. Not because of how you acted, but because of who you are. Mia swallowed hard, unsure of how to respond. Part of her wanted to believe him, to trust that this moment wasn't just another fleeting illusion. But fear held her back. Fear of being hurt, of losing everything once again. I should probably get home, she said finally, avoiding his gaze. Ethan nodded, though disappointment flickered across his features. Of course. Let me call the car. As they rode back to his penthouse in silence, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed between them. Whether it was for better or worse, only time would tell. The days following the gala were unlike anything Ethan had anticipated. What should have been a return to normalcy, a quiet retreat into his usual routines, instead became an internal reckoning. For the first time in years, he found himself unable to shake someone from his thoughts. Mia's presence lingered in every corner of his penthouse, her laughter echoing faintly in his mind, her words replaying like a haunting melody. He tried to rationalize it. She was part of a plan, nothing more, a means to an end. Yet no matter how many times he repeated those phrases to himself, they rang hollow. The truth was undeniable. Mia had gotten under his skin in ways no one else ever had. Her authenticity, her resilience, her unwavering kindness. It all challenged everything Ethan thought he knew about relationships and love. For Mia, the aftermath of the gala was equally disorienting. Returning to Ethan's luxurious apartment after glimpsing a world she never imagined herself inhabiting left her feeling torn. On one hand, there was gratitude for the safety, the stability, the chance to rebuild her life. On the other, there was guilt. Was she using Ethan as much as he was using her? And what happened when this arrangement inevitably ended? Their interactions grew increasingly charged with unspoken emotions. Conversations that once revolved around logistics or rehearsing lines now veered into deeper territory. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony overlooking the city lights, Ethan broached a topic neither had dared address directly. "Why did you agree to this?" he asked suddenly, his voice low but probing. Mia looked up from the book she'd been pretending to read. "To survive," she replied honestly. "I didn't see another way out." Ethan nodded slowly, though his expression betrayed a mix of admiration and regret. And now, her eyes met his, searching for answers she wasn't sure she wanted to find. "Now, I don't know. Things are different." "They are," he agreed softly. "Different for me too." An awkward silence settled between them, heavy with implications neither felt ready to confront. But the seed had been planted, and over the coming weeks, their connection continued to deepen. As Mia adjusted to her new reality, the stark contrasts between her past and Ethan's world became impossible to ignore. While Ethan moved effortlessly through board meetings, charity events, and high-profile dinners, Mia spent her days navigating quieter pursuits. With Ethan's support, she enrolled in online courses to finish her degree in social work, a passion she'd abandoned during her struggles. She also began volunteering at a local shelter, finding solace in helping others who reminded her of herself. These differences occasionally led to friction. Once, after a particularly grueling day at the office, Ethan returned home to find Mia packing boxes of donated clothes for the shelter. His frustration boiled over. "You're giving away perfectly good designer outfits?" he snapped, gesturing to the pile of garments. "Do you have any idea how much those cost?" Mia froze, stung by his tone. "Yes, I do. And that's exactly why I'm donating them. These dresses won't fit anyone here. They'll just sit in closets collecting dust. Someone else can use them." Ethan opened his mouth to argue but stopped himself. Instead, he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "You're right. I'm sorry." Moments like these forced both of them to confront not only their differing values but also their own insecurities. For Ethan, it was the fear of losing control, the realization that loving someone meant letting go of perfectionism. For Mia, it was the struggle to reconcile her independence with the growing dependence on Ethan's generosity. Despite these challenges, their bond only strengthened. Late-night conversations about class disparity, trust, and vulnerability became a staple of their evenings. Ethan shared stories of his lonely childhood, while Mia opened up about the shame and isolation she'd experienced on the streets. In sharing their scars, they discovered a mutual understanding that transcended their vastly different lives. Not everyone approved of their budding relationship. News of Ethan Carter dating a mysterious woman spread quickly, drawing the attention of both admirers and critics. Among the latter was Richard Langston, Ethan's longtime business partner and closest confidant. Richard cornered Ethan in his office one afternoon, his expression grim. "What the hell are you doing, Ethan? Associating with someone like her could ruin your reputation, and ours." "Someone like who?" Ethan shot back, his temper flaring. "She has a name, Richard. It's Mia." "I don't care what her name is," Richard retorted. "She's trouble. You think people aren't talking? They're calling her a gold digger, a fraud. Do you really want to risk everything we've built because of some sob story?" Ethan clenched his fists, struggling to keep his composure. "You don't know her. If you did, you'd understand why I—" "Understand what?" Richard interrupted sharply. "That you're throwing away decades of hard work for a woman who doesn't belong in your world? Wake up, Ethan. This isn't a fairy tale." The confrontation left Ethan shaken but resolute. He refused to let anyone dictate whom he cared for or why. Still, Richard's words planted seeds of doubt in his mind. Could Mia truly handle the scrutiny that came with being associated with him? Did she even want to? Meanwhile, public opinion turned against Mia as tabloids latched onto the scandal. Headlines screamed accusations. Billionaire's mystery date, gold digger or genius. Photographers camped outside Ethan's building, desperate for a glimpse of Mia. Social media erupted with debates about her motives, fueled by anonymous sources claiming she'd manipulated Ethan into their arrangement. One night, Mia stumbled upon an article while scrolling through her phone. The piece painted her as a conniving opportunist who'd preyed on Ethan's loneliness. Tears blurred her vision as she read the cruel comments below. "She's trash," one user wrote. "He deserves better." Unable to bear it any longer, Mia fled to the rooftop garden of the penthouse, seeking solace beneath the stars. When Ethan found her there, wrapped in a blanket and staring into the distance, his heart ached. "I saw the article," he said gently, sitting beside her. "None of it's true." "It doesn't matter if it's true," Mia whispered, her voice breaking. "People believe it. They always will. Maybe Richard's right. I don't belong here." Ethan reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. "You belong wherever I am. Don't let them tell you otherwise." But despite his reassurances, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that their worlds were fundamentally incompatible. Love alone might not be enough to bridge the gap. Resolution of doubts. Determined to prove his commitment, Ethan took drastic action. He called a press conference to address the rumors swirling around Mia. Standing before a sea of reporters, he spoke with unwavering conviction. "Let me make one thing clear," he began, his voice steady. "Mia Thompson is not a gold digger, nor is she a fraud. She is the most genuine, compassionate person I've ever known. Any attempt to disparage her reflects poorly on those making such claims, not on her." His declaration silenced the room, earning gasps and murmurs of surprise. When questioned further, Ethan doubled down. "If anyone has an issue with our relationship, they can take it up with me. But let me warn you, no amount of criticism will change how I feel about her." Back at the penthouse, Mia watched the broadcast in stunned silence. By the time Ethan returned, she was waiting for him, tears streaming down her face. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You could have lost everything." "I'd lose everything for you," he replied simply. "Because without you, none of it matters." In that moment, Mia realized something profound. Ethan wasn't just fighting for her, he was fighting for them. Together, they vowed to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by a love that defied logic, expectation, and societal judgment. Little did they know, their greatest test was yet to come. The aftermath of Ethan's public declaration marked a turning point in their relationship. While the media storm began to subside, replaced by cautious curiosity about their unconventional pairing, both Ethan and Mia faced personal challenges that tested their resolve and their love. With Ethan's unwavering support, Mia embarked on a path of self-discovery and renewal. She moved out of his penthouse into a small studio apartment he helped secure for her, insisting on maintaining some independence despite his protests. "I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet," she explained gently, "even if it's just one step at a time." Her days became a balancing act between rebuilding her life and navigating her evolving feelings for Ethan. During the week, she attended online classes and volunteered at the shelter, finding purpose in helping others who had walked in her shoes. At night, she painted, a hobby she'd abandoned during her darkest days. Her artwork, vibrant and raw, reflected her journey. Abstract swirls of color representing chaos, interspersed with bursts of light symbolizing hope. One evening, as Ethan visited her new apartment, he noticed several canvases propped against the wall. Intrigued, he asked her about them. "They're fragments of me," Mia admitted shyly. "Memories, emotions, moments I've lived through. Painting helps me process everything." Ethan studied the pieces closely, seeing not just art but glimpses of Mia's soul. He pointed to a painting dominated by deep blues and streaks of gold. "What's this one?" "That's resilience," she replied softly. "It's about surviving the storms and finding beauty in the wreckage." Moved by her vulnerability, Ethan pulled her into an embrace. "You're incredible, you know that?" Mia rested her head against his chest, feeling safe for the first time in years. Yet beneath the surface, doubts lingered. Could someone like her truly belong in Ethan's world? Was she strong enough to endure the scrutiny that inevitably came with loving him? For Ethan, Mia's influence extended far beyond romantic affection. Her presence forced him to confront the emptiness of his previous existence and inspired him to use his wealth and resources for meaningful change. Together, they brainstormed ways to expand the Carter Foundation's reach, focusing on initiatives that directly addressed homelessness and poverty. One project close to Mia's heart was creating transitional housing programs for individuals struggling to reintegrate into society. Ethan threw himself into the effort, leveraging his connections and expertise to bring the vision to life. For the first time, he felt a sense of fulfillment that surpassed any business deal or financial milestone. But Mia wasn't the only catalyst for his transformation. The backlash from certain circles, particularly Richard Langston, continued to haunt him. Richard's warnings about jeopardizing their partnership grew louder, culminating in an ultimatum: distance himself from Mia or risk losing key investors. "You're playing with fire, Ethan," Richard said during a tense meeting. "People respect your brilliance, but they won't tolerate weakness. Love makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability is a liability." Ethan leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Then maybe it's time I stopped caring so much about what people think. If standing by Mia means risking my empire, so be it. Some things are worth more than money." Richard shook his head in disbelief. "You'll regret this." "I already regret letting fear dictate my life for so long," Ethan countered firmly. "Not anymore." Though the fallout strained his professional relationships, Ethan refused to compromise. His decision earned him criticism from some quarters but admiration from others who recognized the sincerity behind his actions. Slowly, he began redefining success, not by profit margins or power plays, but by the impact he could make on people's lives. Just as Ethan and Mia started to find stability, an old adversary resurfaced, threatening to shatter everything they'd built. Marcus Hale, a disgraced former associate of Ethan's, had been quietly plotting revenge ever since Ethan exposed his fraudulent dealings years earlier. Now, armed with damning information about Ethan's past, including secrets even Mia didn't know, Marcus saw an opportunity to destroy him once and for all. Late one night, Ethan received a chilling message from Marcus: "End things with Mia, or I'll make sure everyone knows the truth." Panic gripped Ethan as he read the words. The truth referred to a dark chapter in his career, a scandal involving insider trading allegations that he'd narrowly escaped thanks to clever legal maneuvering. Though ultimately exonerated, the incident had left scars, and revealing it now would not only tarnish his reputation but also drag Mia into the fray. Desperate to protect her, Ethan confronted Marcus in person. The meeting took place in a dimly lit parking garage, tension crackling in the air. "What do you want?" Ethan demanded, his voice icy. "It's simple," Marcus sneered. "Leave Mia, and I'll keep quiet. Stay with her, and I'll ruin both of you." Ethan clenched his fists, fury boiling beneath the surface. But instead of lashing out, he adopted a calm, calculated tone. "You underestimate me, Marcus. Threatening me is one thing, but involving an innocent woman? That's low even for you." Marcus laughed coldly. "Love makes you weak, Ethan. Don't say I didn't warn you." As Ethan walked away, his mind raced. He couldn't let Marcus win. But how could he shield Mia without sacrificing their relationship? Unbeknownst to Ethan, Mia overheard part of his conversation with Marcus. Eavesdropping outside his office, she caught snippets that painted a grim picture. Ethan choosing between her and his legacy, fearful of becoming a burden, or worse, collateral damage. She resolved to leave before Marcus could follow through on his threats. That evening, Mia packed a suitcase, tears streaming down her face as she scribbled a note. "Ethan, thank you for everything, for believing in me when no one else did, for showing me kindness when I needed it most. But I can't let you risk your life for mine. Please forgive me. Always, Mia." Before dawn broke, she slipped out of the penthouse, leaving behind only the note and a void that Ethan would soon discover. When he found it hours later, panic consumed him. Frantically calling her phone, visiting her apartment, and scouring the city, he realized she was gone. It wasn't until he traced her steps to the shelter where she volunteered that he finally caught up with her. "Why did you leave?" he demanded, his voice trembling with emotion. I heard you talking to Marcus, she confessed, avoiding his gaze. I thought it'd be easier if I disappeared. You shouldn't have to choose between me and your life. Ethan cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. Don't you see? You are my life. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. I'm not letting you go. Not again. Relief washed over Mia as she collapsed into his arms. Together, they vowed to confront Marcus head-on, refusing to let fear dictate their future. In the weeks that followed, Ethan publicly addressed Marcus's accusations, taking full responsibility for his past mistakes while emphasizing his commitment to change. Surprisingly, many rallied behind him, praising his transparency and integrity. As for Marcus, his attempts to slander Ethan backfired, leading to legal consequences for defamation. Through it all, Ethan and Mia emerged stronger than ever. Their trials had stripped away pretenses, leaving only the raw, unshakable bond they shared. They learned that love wasn't about perfection. It was about standing beside each other through imperfections, storms, and uncertainties. And as they prepared for the next chapter of their journey, neither doubted that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The months following their confrontation with Marcus Hale brought a sense of calm and renewal to Ethan and Mia's lives. With the media storm subsiding and Marcus neutralized, they found themselves settling into a rhythm that felt both familiar and new. Their bond had deepened beyond anything either of them could have anticipated, transforming from a tentative arrangement into an unbreakable partnership. Ethan continued expanding his philanthropic efforts, channeling his wealth into projects inspired by Mia's experiences. Together, they launched a groundbreaking initiative to provide affordable housing, job training programs, and mental health resources for homeless individuals. The program quickly gained national attention, earning praise not only for its innovative approach but also for the authenticity behind it. For the first time in years, Ethan felt truly aligned with his values, and he owed much of that clarity to Mia. Mia, meanwhile, thrived in her newfound independence. She completed her online courses with flying colors and began working part-time at a community outreach center, where she counseled others facing hardships similar to those she'd endured. Her artwork gained recognition as well, with several pieces featured in local galleries. Yet, despite her growing accomplishments, she remained grounded, crediting Ethan's unwavering support for giving her the courage to believe in herself again. But even as their lives flourished, there was one question lingering between them, a question neither had dared to voice outright. Where did they go from here? Was this love strong enough to withstand the test of time? Ethan knew the answer long before he put it into words. Over the past few months, he'd come to realize that Mia wasn't just the person who made him happiest. She was the person who made him whole. Without her, his successes felt hollow, his days incomplete. He wanted more than fleeting moments or stolen glances. He wanted forever. Still, planning the proposal wasn't easy. Ethan had never been one for grand gestures, preferring practicality over extravagance. But Mia deserved something extraordinary, something that reflected the depth of his feelings and celebrated the woman she was. He spent weeks brainstorming ideas, discarding elaborate schemes in favor of simplicity. Finally, inspiration struck during one of their quiet evenings together. They often ended their nights on the rooftop garden of his penthouse, wrapped in blankets as they gazed at the city lights below. It was there, surrounded by twinkling stars and the hum of distant traffic, that Ethan decided to make his move. On a crisp autumn evening, Ethan invited Mia up to the rooftop after dinner. "I thought we'd watch the sunset," he said casually, though his heart raced with anticipation. As they settled onto the plush outdoor furniture, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink, Ethan reached for her hand. His touch sent a shiver through Mia, though she chalked it up to the cool breeze. She turned to him, smiling softly. "It's beautiful tonight." "So are you," Ethan replied, his voice thick with emotion. He paused, gathering his thoughts, then took a deep breath. "Mia, I need to say something. Something I should have said a long time ago." Her brow furrowed slightly, sensing the gravity in his tone. "What is it?" Ethan shifted so he faced her fully, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. Before you, I was lost. I lived for work, for success, for things that didn't matter. But you showed me what really matters. Kindness, resilience, love. He swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. You've given me a reason to live. Not just exist, but truly live. And I can't imagine my future without you in it. Tears welled in Mia's eyes as she watched him lower himself onto one knee. Opening the box revealed a delicate diamond ring nestled against satin, its brilliance catching the fading sunlight. Mia Thompson, Ethan continued, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. Will you marry me? Time seemed to stand still. The city noise faded into the background, leaving only the sound of their breathing and the pounding of Mia's heart. She stared at him, overwhelmed by emotion. This wasn't the polished billionaire who once hired her under false pretenses. It was the man who had stood by her side through trials and triumphs, who had proven his love in countless ways. Yes, she whispered finally, her voice barely audible over the rush of tears. Yes, of course. Ethan's face lit up with relief and joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Pulling her into his arms, he kissed her deeply. The weight of uncertainty lifted. Around them, the city sparkled like a sea of diamonds, mirroring the glow in their hearts. Word of the engagement spread quickly, drawing reactions ranging from delight to disbelief. Friends, family, and even former critics gathered to celebrate the couple's union at an intimate party hosted in Ethan's penthouse. The atmosphere buzzed with laughter and music, the air filled with the scent of gourmet hors d'oeuvres and fresh flowers. Among the guests was Isabella Moretti, who approached Mia with an unexpected smile. Congratulations, she said sincerely, surprising everyone, including herself. You're good for him, better than anyone else could be. Mia accepted the compliment graciously, realizing how far Isabella had come since their tense encounter at the gala. It was proof that people could change if they chose to. Later that night, as the festivities wound down, Ethan pulled Mia aside. Are you happy? He asked quietly. She looked at him, her eyes shining with gratitude and love. More than I ever thought possible. And you know this isn't about money or status, right? It's just us. I know, she replied, leaning into him. It always has been. 6 months later, Ethan and Mia stood beneath a canopy of fairy lights at their wedding reception, surrounded by loved ones and the promise of a bright future. The ceremony had been simple yet poignant, held in a picturesque garden overlooking the ocean. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them. Their journey, from a chance encounter on a rainy street corner to a lifetime commitment, was nothing short of miraculous. Along the way, they had taught each other invaluable lessons about love, humility, and the power of connection. Together, they proved that true happiness wasn't found in wealth or perfection, but in embracing imperfections and choosing to grow alongside someone special. As the music swelled and fireworks painted the night sky, Ethan leaned down to whisper in Mia's ear. Thank you for saying yes. She smiled, squeezing his hand. Thank you for asking. And in that moment, surrounded by light and love, they knew their story was just beginning. The months following their wedding passed in a blur of joy, purpose, and shared dreams. Ethan and Mia's union wasn't just a merging of two lives. It was the creation of something greater than either had imagined possible. Together, they built a life rooted in love, compassion, and a commitment to making the world a better place. Settling into married life came naturally for Ethan and Mia, despite their vastly different backgrounds. They moved into a spacious yet cozy home nestled near Central Park, blending Ethan's appreciation for modern design with Mia's warmth and creativity. The walls were adorned not with expensive art but with Mia's paintings, vivid expressions of their journey together, and photographs capturing candid moments of laughter and love. Their days followed a rhythm that balanced work, passion projects, and quiet evenings at home. Ethan continued leading his tech empire, though he delegated more responsibilities to trusted executives, allowing him to focus on philanthropy. Under his guidance, the Carter Foundation expanded its reach, funding innovative solutions to homelessness, education inequality, and environmental sustainability. Mia played an integral role in shaping these initiatives, drawing from her own experiences to ensure programs addressed real needs rather than superficial fixes. One of their proudest achievements was the launch of Rising Tides, a comprehensive support system designed to help individuals transition out of homelessness. The program provided temporary housing, job training, mental health counseling, and mentorship opportunities, all under one roof. Its success inspired similar efforts nationwide, earning Ethan and Mia recognition as champions of social change. But beyond the accolades, what truly mattered to them were the stories of transformation they witnessed firsthand. Formerly homeless individuals finding stable jobs, families reuniting after years apart, young adults pursuing education thanks to scholarships funded by the foundation. Each story reinforced their belief in the power of empathy and action. Ethan and Mia's partnership extended far beyond their personal relationship. It became a beacon of hope for others. Their collaboration demonstrated that wealth and privilege could be wielded responsibly, creating lasting change when combined with genuine care and understanding. Through interviews, public appearances, and advocacy campaigns, they encouraged others to look beyond stereotypes and see the humanity in everyone. Mia, once hesitant to step into the spotlight, embraced her role as a voice for marginalized communities. She spoke openly about her past struggles, using her platform to challenge societal stigmas surrounding poverty and homelessness. Her authenticity resonated deeply with audiences, inspiring countless individuals to seek help or offer support to those in need. Their influence even reached global stages. At a United Nations Summit on Sustainable Development, Ethan delivered a keynote address highlighting the importance of addressing root causes of poverty rather than treating symptoms. Standing beside him, Mia shared heartfelt anecdotes about the resilience she'd witnessed among shelter residents, bringing many attendees to tears. "We often think of charity as giving handouts," Ethan said during the speech. "But true progress comes from empowering people to reclaim their dignity and agency. That's what my wife has taught me. That kindness is transformative." Applause erupted throughout the hall, echoing the sentiment shared by so many who admired their work. As time went on, Ethan and Mia found themselves reflecting on how far they'd come. Not just individually, but together. For Ethan, Mia represented everything he'd been searching for without realizing it. A partner who challenged him, inspired him, and reminded him of life's deeper meaning. Her unwavering optimism and humility had softened his edges, teaching him to value connection over control. "I used to measure success by numbers," Ethan confessed during a quiet evening at home. "Profits, market shares, assets. But now, success is seeing you smile, knowing we've made a difference, even if it's just for one person." Mia smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "And I learned that strength isn't about doing everything alone. It's about letting someone in, trusting them to stand beside you through thick and thin. You've given me that gift, Ethan. You've given me faith in myself again." Their reflections weren't limited to private conversations. In interviews and speeches, they openly discussed the challenges they'd faced and the lessons they'd learned along the way. Their honesty struck a chord with millions, proving that love could transcend barriers of class, circumstance, and doubt. On a crisp spring morning, Ethan and Mia returned to the park where their paths first crossed. It was a tradition they'd started early in their marriage, a way to honor the moment that changed their lives forever. Hand in hand, they strolled along winding paths lined with blooming cherry blossoms, reminiscing about the journey that brought them here. Near the same intersection where Mia had helped an elderly man cross the street, they paused. Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "Do you remember this spot?" he asked softly. "Of course," Mia replied, smiling up at him. "It's where I met the most stubborn, brilliant, infuriatingly wonderful man I know." Ethan chuckled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "And it's where I met the kindest, strongest, most extraordinary woman." They stood there for a moment, watching as sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Life hadn't always been kind to them, but together, they'd created something beautiful. A testament to the idea that love, no matter how unlikely, can conquer all. As they walked away, arm in arm, the city buzzed around them, oblivious to the miracle unfolding within its bounds. Ethan and Mia Carter weren't just a billionaire and a formerly homeless woman. They were proof that second chances exist, that hearts can heal, and that sometimes the greatest stories begin with the simplest acts of kindness. And beneath the endless sky, surrounded by the hum of possibility, they stepped forward into their future, ready to face whatever lay ahead, together.